The old adage says to be very careful about that for which you pray. And even if you are not the praying kind, on election day, an uneducated voter is a politician's best customer. In 2016, Donald Trump went to African American churches and leaders and asked, "What do you have to lose?" But the so-called leaders of the most reliable Democrat Party voters listened to progressives like Hillary Clinton and rejected a "not my president," while the NAACP, marketed as the oldest and the boldest civil rights organization, went on to declare a national moratorium on public charter schools. The only solution that has made gains in reducing the 150-year-old achievement gap that found the only African Americans in the Commonwealth's best public schools being recognized for achievement being in athletics in the very same year that an African American endorsed school board candidate from the Democrat Party presented the motion to change the name of a high school to remove the name of the man who actually broke the law to educate his slaves and who was the sole courageous voice in Southwest Virginia after the war to champion a freedmen's school, not to help the Union to win a war like the first one in Arlington, to restore the Union, but to bring them an education for a pathway to full citizenship. Those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. And in 2016, the same "not my president" who mainstream black church ministers refused to call by name, preferring the nickname 45 in their pulpits on the express direction from their Democrat Party bosses, appeared from the Rose Garden at the March for Life. And only the Church of God in Christ, the least affluent and the least educated amongst black church denominations, affirmed his call that they must choose life. While in Virginia, despite a governor and attorney general who they were told mocked them by wearing blackface, the survivor of a refugee camp stood up as the poster child for infanticide, while an African American legislator in Ohio pleaded with her colleagues for an exemption for black babies from the heartbeat bill. And on November 12, 2019, just 1 week after the election where the Democrat Party's most reliable voters aided their party of choice to regain control of the state legislature in Virginia on empty promises for entitlement programs, the state Supreme Court, in a decision that not even the NAACP had contested from the outset, reversed the 2007 Supreme Court ruling in Parents Involved in Community School versus Seattle School District Number 1, that public school districts that had a history of court-ordered desegregation were entitled to strict scrutiny on claims alleging discrimination, and affirmed the decision of the Arlington County Circuit Court that a school renaming committee to change a name that would not be offensive to African Americans was not discrimination if the school board chose not to include African Americans on that renaming committee. While to date, even their elected warrior for progressive causes in Congress, Don Beyer, has chosen to refrain from even calling it an injustice that the Fourth Circuit repealed the provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that the Supreme Court had in 1966 permitted to acquit 20 protesters engaged in civil disobedience and charged with the misdemeanor of trespass when they attempted to integrate lunch counters in Atlanta during the turbulent year of 1963, in which Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. told a crowd assembled before the steps of the Lincoln Memorial about a dream that he had had. And so in November, it is a referendum election where you have the power to choose between the party of manumission, slavery, oppression, Jim Crow, and subjugation, or to choose the party of emancipation. In November, you have the power to choose between the party of welfare entitlement and government dependency, or the party of opportunity. In November, you have the power to choose between the party of underperforming public schools and achievement gaps, or the party of school choice. you have the power to choose between the party of mandatory union membership or the party of a right to work. You have the power to choose between the party of universal socialized medicine or the party that will let you choose your provider and your doctor and your insurance plan. In November, you have the power to choose between the party of awaiting the arrival of law enforcement or the party of the right to stand your ground and defend yourself. In November, you have the power to choose between the party of higher taxes and growing bureaucracies or the power of lower taxes and self-determination. It is your party and it is your choice. I am a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order. And I am not ashamed of the gospel. My name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for U.S. Congress, not unmindful of the future, with liberty and excellence. Let's make America great again. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.